Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I, the one and only Sonic the Hedgehog here, aka the Blue Blur, aka Blue Justice. And I am Tails here, or if you want to call me Miles Tails Prower, and we are from the likes of the Mexi Toys videos once again. Yes, that's exactly right, buddy. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Donkey Kong Country Returns HD for the Nintendo Switch. So, last time, we essentially did manage to traverse into the second world, which appears to be the beach world, and overall, we did that world pretty okay. I mean, apart from the fact that we did die a couple of times in journey forms of Stormy Shore, but that's just mainly because of the forms of hesitation, and not only that though, is about the fact that we keep on missing a couple of collectibles from time to time. To be more accurate though, one of the Kong letters to be more specifically. But apart from those side things though, and also we did somehow messed up at one point in the next temple level, mainly because I accidentally missed one of the last puzzle pieces, but apart from those side things though is about the fact that for the most part, the second temple level's pretty easy, aside from the fact that we able to actually have Diddy Kong with us. So anyways, so today, for this video, is that as you can tell, we are now moving on to the next world, which is going to take place in the ruins. So, obviously though, is about the fact that we can able to actually, at one point, that we ended up in journey forms within the first part of the forms of the level, if you couldn't tell, with Wonky Waterway, where basically though, much like the forms of how it does on popping planks in journey forms within the beach world. At one point we ended up in the journey forms within the jungle bit at first, but then it somehow transitioned into the beach environment, which that could be also applies to the forms of future worlds and beyond. Like specifically, in this level right here, at one point we ended up in the beach section, but then we somehow immediately transitioned into the ruins temple. So because of that though, yeah, we still really love about the fact that with this whole transition with when it comes to like they go on to the next world and stuff. Although, despite the fact that the entire structure to me though, it kind of reminds me like a similar vibes as the forms of Crash Bandicoot sometimes. To be more specifically, Crash Bandicoot 1, where basically though is about the fact that at one point certain stages are, well, it's hard for me to explain because we already know for a fact it has been about a couple of months ago since we've last mentioned something related to Crash Bandicoot, despite the fact that it's been almost 2 years ago since we've last had a brand new Crash Bandicoot game ever since Crash Team Rumble, despite the fact that that game was you know, pretty mixed when it comes to reception. And not only that though, a lot of people don't attempt to play that game anymore, but that's mainly because its online functionality was only required. You're not able to actually get the full experience. And not only that though, Sonic, is about the fact that for what I can tell, about the fact that no matter what though, it's a bit difficult to explain about that particular topic as far as I'm aware. Well, generally speaking though, Tails, is about the fact that there are some unfortunate news has been happened, but either way though, we'll get into more details about that particular topic until whenever we continue exploring for the ruins world. So anyway, so yeah, a few things we want to talk about is about the fact that, well, today's date of course there is the 19th of February today, in some cases in 2025 today. So recently though, in journey forms of on Paramount Plus, it looks like about the fact that Sonic the Hedgehog 3 movie has recently now released on Paramount Plus. So no matter what though, if you do manage able to actually access to Paramount Plus recently, well, thankfully though, you can able to watch that film at any time, or in some cases like multiple run-throughs when it comes to likely if you try to able to enjoy the film like so many times, such as ourselves. Especially about the fact that no matter what though, about the fact that we've only got about 2 months left until the DVD/Blu-ray, including 4K UHD Blu-ray release of Sonic the Hedgehog 3 was expected to be releasing at some point in April, as we've already established that before. So relatively speaking, I was about the fact that, yeah, not much else I can really say about that particular release as far as I'm aware. Although, there's one thing to keep this in mind though, Sonic, is that unfortunately though, we've only got about 1 month left until specifically the most controversial Disney live-action movie is going to be on its way, and that's what appears to be Snow White, which, truth be told, we're still not going to see that film anyway, just because there's a lot of negative backlash, especially concerning all that controversial opinions on specific decisions, and not to mention though, every time when the actual the film did manage able to bring in some new trailers and all that stuff. Wait a second, is that supposed to be a Joy-Con controller on the background right there? Oh yeah, let's get into the forms of that huge difference. Or should I say another huge difference between both the Wii version as well as the 3DS version in comparison to the Switch version. Normally though, on the Wii version, including the 3DS version as well, that if you pay attention to the background in this level right here, if you see that 8-bit Donkey Kong model right there, normally back then, that he attempts able to actually hold the Wii remote. Well, on the Switch version, on the other hand, as you can see, he's now holding the left Joy-Con, because obviously though it's about the fact that this is a Switch version after all. So, yeah, pretty nice little change of the details. So, either way though, yeah, that's something worth classifying for noticing this. And it's also worth noting for too, is that if you try to wait for a little while, if you're standing completely still, that is, if you try to pull off the idle animation for Donkey Kong and all that stuff, basically though, it's about the fact that the idle animation is also changed, depending on what version of the game you play. Like, for instance though, on the Wii version, in addition to the 3DS version as well, basically though, Donkey Kong did somehow manage able to play the Nintendo DS, whilst on the Switch version, if you couldn't tell, Donkey Kong now actually plays in actual Nintendo Switch. So, despite the fact that obviously though that Switch 2 is still going to be on its way, but either way. So let's move on to the next level, which appears to be World 3-2 Button Bash. So, yeah, it looks like for this particular stage is that we need to activate all kinds of buttons before we proceed. So, yeah, I got nothing else to say about this particular stage, I guess. Although, as you can tell from the beginning of the level, basically though, you have to take down this little wooden thing there, and just trying to get that puzzle piece from there, because, you know, if you really want to go for a true 100% completion, or should I say, 200% in the game, well, obviously though, it's about the fact that always make sure you need able to try to do that anyway, because otherwise, if you accidentally get into the actual the barrel cannon, obviously though, there's no way to backtrack, so either way. So let's just go through here and grab another puzzle piece. Seriously, that's 3 puzzle pieces in a row so far in terms of the stage. And I did not meant to destroy that enemy right there because I need a K. Because obviously though, trying to jump normally will not give enough height. So yeah, we do need that enemy to able to do a bit of a bounce height in order to able to get the K letter. So yeah, that's something worth noting for, I guess. So, anywho though, there's also another thing else we'd like to point out as well, is about the fact that there is unfortunately some terrible news is about to happen when it comes to likely for Nintendo company alike, or to be more specifically, with Nintendo Switch specifically. And that's what it appears to be. There is this very cool reward system during the forms of in My Nintendo, which appears to be the gold points you can able to actually get earned. Every time if you do manage to purchase the game digitally, or to be more accurate though, if you try to select the forms of the My Nintendo program, or should I say with the forms of gold points program and stuff like that, basically though, assuming of course if you do manage to get certain Switch games physically, basically though is about the fact you're able to actually get some additional extra gold points if you do manage to able to actually sign in the forms of My Nintendo program in during forms of one of the settings. So, and I'm afraid to tell you for this point guys, is about the fact that we've only just got about 1 month left until the actual gold point system is about to expire. So no matter what though, it did state this about the fact that when you pre-ordered a digital content game just before 9:30 p.m. on March 24th of 2025, any pre-orders for digital content made before you know, pretty much the same thing, basically though, will earn you gold points. Even if the payment will be produced later, the gold points are for these pre-orders will be awarded by the day after the payment has processed or something like that. Although it did stay with the forms of the actual articles so far, that you can still technically get gold points if you wanted to, but here's the catch though, is about the fact that when you purchase the a physical version of a game released on or before the 24th of March, or technically the 25th of March, depending on the time zone. Basically though, the physical games, or the physical versions of games that were released during that time will logically can able to earn gold points. So relatively speaking, I was about the fact that that's actually a pretty cool system to me though, but I'm afraid to tell you about the fact that, like we established that before, that the gold points, My Nintendo Gold Point system will be eventually discontinued at some point and by the end of March. So, why is it always March, Sonic? Well, I have no idea why for this point, Tails. It kind of reminds me of like a similar situation, actually, for the likes of the phones. Remember back in Journey phones within the 5 years ago that we have to put up with the phones, that terrible pandemic lockdown situation right there? Oh yeah, what about it? Basically though, it's about the fact that it usually happens in March, depending on what country we lived in. So generally speaking though, is that in our country's sake, that basically though, the lockdown did somehow technically began ever since in sometime in March in 2020, just before, you know, some out of nowhere games have been revealed for Twitter drops, and also not to mention though, a lot of emphasis on Nintendo Direct minis, including with the forms of overusage of partner showcase types. So, although we still managed able to get ourselves the 35th anniversary of the Super Mario Bros. Direct after all, yeah, that's besides the point, Tails, but either way. But we're still very curious to know of what's gonna happen for the sake of the 40th anniversary coming up soon for the likes of the Super Mario Bros. Franchise. So, but then again though, Sonic, we'll have to wait and see what happens in due time. So, yeah, anyway. So, potentially speaking, I was about the fact that, well, yeah, it's kind of unfortunate when it comes to likely for the gold point system coming up, where it's like discontinuation and stuff. In fact, on My Nintendo, or should I say Nintendo UK Twitter, did manage able to point out there was like some more information has been found, like from March 25th in 2025, it will no longer be possible to earn My Nintendo Gold Points. Existing gold points can still be used after this date. So generally speaking, I was about the fact that it looks like we're going to be losing a lot of stuff recently, especially after the events of, you know, back in 2024, that we somehow lost not only the online play for the likes of the, you know, Nintendo 3DS and the Wii U for the likes of the Nintendo Network system, and it's also worth noting for too that we've lost the ability to able to actually purchase some of the actual stuff from the Xbox Live Marketplace, or specifically the Xbox 360 Marketplace, Journey phones around the exact same year. Although, relatively speaking though, it is still possible that you can able to actually still get some digital content for the Xbox 360's backwards compatibility onto Xbox One, as well as Xbox Series X/S, but ultimately though, when it comes to some exceptions, which appears to be, well, of course, mainly the DLC content for Sonic the Hedgehog 2006, although you're still able to actually get the DLC on the PlayStation 3, we're assuming, of course, it's only exclusive to not only the European countries, but alongside with the also the Japanese version as well, at least if I could recall that correctly, but either way. Also, did you know about the fact that it's been 20 years ago since one of those films did somehow first came out on a big screen? Oh yeah, I think one of those films that did somehow mention about the film's 20th anniversary during that time, that's what it appears to be, Who's Heffalump movie, which, as a result though, I can't even believe that film is now 20 years old since 2005. And alongside with that though, Sonic, there is also the 25th anniversary of the Tiku movie as well, ever since in a millennium year in 2000. Oh yeah, I completely forgot about that personally, because I do sort of remember about the fact that, I believe someone said to me in the comments, back in Journey films have been, let's just say in sometime in 2021 or 2022, I think I somehow lost count on that part, that, basically though, I do remember that someone said in the comments they suggest us able to actually tackle through Tigger's Honey Hunt for the PlayStation 1 or Nintendo 64 versions, and we might be able to actually try to think about it, but relatively speaking, I was about the fact it might be possible if we can able to decide to do it, for able to try to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Tigger movie, or 20th anniversary of Pooh's Heffalump movie, which, as a result, that was the film they somehow introduced, Lumpy the Heffalump. So, or in some cases a nice friendly Heffalump, which, yeah, you probably get the idea for this point, especially concerning for that. Well, it has been about quite a few years since we've last watched any Winnie the Pooh stuff, especially because, obviously at this point in time, that we are still incredibly excited about the films of trying to rewatch Sonic the Hedgehog 3 again, once that comes out on DVD and Blu-ray at long last, after, well, you know what I'm saying, after like 4 months after, you know, the theatrical release date or something. So, anyway, also, about the fact that, I think there was actually a new series has recently came out on Disney Plus, and that's what appears to be Win or Lose, made by not only Disney, but alongside with Pixar as well. So, I've got no comments on this so far, especially because at this point in time, that I'm still waiting for the next Mission Impossible film is going to be releasing on the big screen, which is of course, The Final Reckoning, and then eventually at some point, well, I'm afraid to tell you for this point, guys, I get this strong feeling when it comes to 2025 selections of films so far, I don't think I can probably try to see most of it. Well, I was originally able to actually try to check out the Minecraft movie, but then I realized about the fact that I've noticed there was a bunch of merchandise of that particular film has already been up, and you know who actually decided able to make all these figurines and action figures for the sake of the films of a Minecraft movie figurines? Oh, what's that, Sonic? Well, there's this company called Mattel, where basically that was about the fact that they are now responsible for able to actually making the action figures based off of the upcoming movie, a Minecraft movie, which we're still able to actually expect about the fact that the box office might still go strong, especially because obviously though a lot of players out there always attempt to play Minecraft all over around the world, or even every nowadays about the fact with multiple versions in addition to that as well. Like, even though it's a bit hard to explain about this particular subject personally though, just because at this point in time that we are still basically saving up for Nintendo Switch 2, and it's especially noticeable concerning for that exciting new titles is going to be revealed at some point later down the road for 2025, and sure enough though, it's going to be a lot of excitement is going to happen. So yeah, I think you keep on and on about it with that particular subject, you know. So anyway, the next thing we want to point out, actually, is about the fact that it looks like that Bob's Burgers is going to be returning at some point in this May, which means it's going to be the next series, if I'm assuming so anyway. Well, mind you, we have heard about the films of Bob's Burgers, but we never actually watched any of those episodes, aside from a few cameos from the likes of certain episodes of The Simpsons, which, because obviously though is about the fact that The Simpsons is still iconic even to this day to me though, but that's just me. So anyway, so we now ended up in this very unexpected pirate ship, despite the fact that obviously though the entire world is going to take place in a ruins, but ultimately speaking I was about the fact that I think this is the only level in the entire world that does manage to able to give you the opportunity to able to explore some remaining portions of the pirate ship itself, and as a result though, Tails, is about the fact that we can able to just try to take the actual ship down. So, at least if I was assuming so anyway. And it's also worth noting for too, is that I get this strong feeling that the actual Nintendo Switch voucher stuff is also going to be discontinuing as well. Or to be more accurate though, it's not going to be supported onto Nintendo Switch 2. Maybe they'll try to figure something a little bit different this time when it comes to Nintendo Switch 2. But again, we'll have to wait and see what happens during at some point in April the 2nd. So anyway, and there's also another thing else we'd like to point out as well, that at this point in time, there was this new movie called The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie, has actually received some very good reviews so far. Although, usually relatively speaking, it was originally going to able to try to release it in Journey films in February, but of course that film has been pushed back at some point until at March the 14th. So, and as far as what I've seen the review scores on it so far, even though I'm very curious to check it out, especially because I've definitely heard some good things about it though, but regardless of such though, it's about the fact that, well, it did somehow receive 92% on Rotten Tomatoes so far, so even though despite the fact that for whatever reason in the UK version does not seem to be able to get listed so far, although it always seemed to be listed onto the American release so far. So anyway, let's just go ahead and let the cannonball destroy that particular skull crate there, because otherwise if you accidentally use the ground pound right there, you're obviously gonna get hurt. So also, I do sort of remember about the fact that that was around that time when both Mighty and Ray seemed able to actually have some bit of struggles trying to find these specific puzzle pieces sometimes, because relatively speaking, they haven't exactly paid attention to the surroundings as much compared to we do, so yeah, I think I get the idea for that point. So either way, so that pretty much does it for the sake of this particular stage right here, so yeah, for the most part though, that's as far as we can able to try discuss upon in terms of the forms of what's been happening so far, especially because, relatively speaking, it was about the fact that, the next new life for the sake of Nintendo systems, as far as I'm aware, is almost fastly approaching up to this point. So, anyways, let's move on to the next level, which appears to be Dump Dungeon. So, either way, and thankfully we've already purchased that particular key, so that way we can able to actually get into the next level right here. So, but yeah. Oh yeah, there's also another thing else we'd like to point out, in addition about the fact that, well, we already know for the fact that when it comes to Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, right? Well, usually from what I can tell about the fact that there was actually quite a few tracks is going to be coming, which I think we've already discussed upon that actually. And as far as I'm aware, they do have the forms of that particular. Well, it's hard for me to say personally though, just because obviously though is about the fact that we still have no idea when the actual game is going to be releasing at this point. Oh, and another thing too, that recently though, CapKing74, he's now recently finished up every single part in Journey forms of Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition for the Nintendo Switch, specifically just because of, bonus story, which is of course future connected. And as a result though, on the other hand though, that is by far the longest Let's Play he's ever done during the forms of the entire channel for CapKing74, just because at this point it's actually now on to 112 parts, which, gotta think about it though, it actually has the exact same economy as the forms of how it does it for, you remember how in Journey forms of in Super Mario Party Jamboree, right? Of how many mini-games they have in total? Well, usually for that game, it also has a whopping 112 mini-games into that particular Super Mario Party Jamboree. So relatively speaking, I was about the fact that obviously though with CapKing74's Let's Play of Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition specifically is actually on to 112 parts. Well, usually because I would say the second longest Let's Play he's ever done, and that's what appears to be The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, usually makes a grand total of whopping 100 parts, which is obviously the exact same amount as the forms of how much mini-games you're able to experience of Mario Party the Top 100. Because I was originally trying to say Mario Party Superstars, but of course Mario Party Superstars actually decided able to bring back the item mini-games for only for a short amount of time, for likely also it can only experience them for the likes of the actual board gameplay. So generally speaking, that's as far as we can able to actually try to explain about that particular difference in between CapKing74's certain Let's Plays, in addition to how much mini games you're able to experience for certain recent Mario Party games for sure. And I don't think it's possible there's not going to be a new Mario Party game anytime soon, just because, Super Mario Party Jamboree is the most recent installment of the series up to that point. Assuming, of course, they're trying to plan something out of it, like, oh, I don't know, maybe bring the actual DLC over or something. Well, we'll have to wait and see what happens. So, anyway, also, speaking of which, is about the fact that I've also realized about this, is that recently though, Mario Luigi Brothership actually now has a version update, and as far as I'm aware, meaning about the fact that there's a patch update, Sonic. Oh yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say for this point, right from the get-go, actually. But, anyway, and, yeah, Mario Luigi Brothership is now on to version 1.0.1, and what the actual adjustments they somehow brought themselves into? Well, we'll talk more about that in a second, because if you couldn't tell already, it's about the fact that, well, so far so good. In terms of the Ruins world, despite the fact that we do die at one point, probably because of messed up points when it comes to likely trying to get the K in one of those stages and stuff like that, but yeah, aside from that, we're doing this world pretty well. Yeah, I was gonna think about the same thing for you, Sonic, especially because, unlike in the beach world, that we do die a lot of times, so, but hopefully though, we can easily get back on track when it comes to able to try to grind as many of those, one-up balloons as much as possible, and then we'll rarely try to get a game over at this point in time, which, speaking of the game over screen actually, is about the fact that I did somehow manage able to double check of the actual specifically, the game over screen in this particular version of the game. It may look like about the fact that it functions kind of like the same thing as the previous two versions, except, well, usually, if you get to the 0 life count, and if you do die one last time, instead of showing us the forms of that particular silhouette of the upcoming Tiki tribe you have to take down, so instead, the screen somehow fades to black, and as a result, though, it just takes you straight into the game over screen, which is a little bit different. In comparison to the forms of the previous two versions, both on the Wii and the 3DS version. So, anyway, let's move on to the next level, which appears to be, well, Itty Bitty Biters. So, yeah, I think this stage is going to be filled to the brim with these little very strange creature ball stuff, so anyway, let's address the forms of specific patch updates or patch notes for the Mario Luigi Brothership version 1.0.1, although despite the fact that we are almost at the halfway point of that particular game, whenever I manage to play the game on my spare own time, but I'm still having a lot of fun with it still, despite there are some issues with it. But apart from those aside things, though, is about the fact that at least we're still having a good time with the game so far. But anyway, when it comes to bug fixes, they somehow address the player cannot acquire Luck Charm DX even while reaching 100 or more in Hammer Rally. Oh god, I think I sort of heard about that, which I know for a fact it's definitely going to be impossible to try to do that particular challenge, which it kind of reminds me like a similar situation as the forms of one of those challenges or one of the missions in Super Mario Odyssey, not only in the New Donk City, but as well as the forms of Seaside Kingdom, where basically though you have to reach a certain amount of like not only jumps but also try to get a certain amount of points. Like for instance though, there was this one particular mission in New Donk City or Metro Kingdom where basically though you have to reach for about 100 jumps in order to able to get one of the power modes, and that could be also applies with the forms of one of those infamous ones, which appears to be the Beach Volleyball Challenge in Seaside Kingdom, where basically though you have to reach for about 100 rallies or anything else like that. So yeah, it feels like in a similar situation as the forms of recently with Mario Luigi Brothership. So in fact, I've never actually done that for myself, but we're planning to do it at some point, if depending on the forms of how much progress I'm actually into so far. So anyway, and they also addressed an issue where the damage counter for Luigi's Bros attack, which appears to be Jump Helmet, which is the returning item from Mario Luigi Bowser's Inside Story, would only display a single number place value. So yeah, I guess it's that. And they also fixed an issue where killing a Mega Snapter with Surprise Iron Ball while having the Battle Plug coin player acquired, resulting in a player earning no experience points. Oh jeez, that's gonna be unexpected, but regardless of everything else though, at the very least that patch has already been sorted, I guess. So anyway, and they also fixed an issue where defeating all monsters with the power plug counts down to crush and causing multiple items to drop while completing a challenge at the same time resulting in not being able to receive challenge rewards, soft locking the game, which, oh boy, thankfully though we've never actually come across that issue. So anyway, and it also fixed an issue where the fifth power tap was able to be acquired early than attended, which I think that's what it says anyway. And they also fixed an issue where the boss battle in Colorful Sea Great Lighthouse was not occurring in the attended location, blocking game progress. So yeah, it's gonna be one of those exact same situations as the forms of one of those games examples being Paper Mario the Origami King, where I do remember back then when some players actually lost our progress when it comes to likely trying to progress into the game. Like for instance though, if you're trying to get into the forms of the green strip thing, we are able to try to sort that out. And then if you dare mess up in one of those specific required progression, that means you're essentially soft locking the game or essentially deadlocked. Or not only that though, you lost your able to actually try to get more progression. So thankfully we never actually come across into that for ourselves, but I do know for certain for one thing we have to be very cautious about that. Yeah, exactly, because we refuse to be able to actually start all over again in terms of our progression, especially with RPG games, all things considered. So, anyway, and they also fixed an issue where attempting to call Luigi back in a cave on Scritchram Island would cause the progress to recur repeatedly, blocking the game progress. Oh jeez Louise. And they also fixed an issue where players were providing from progressing further during the forms of the idol group's first appearance event in Desolate Island. And finally, they somehow fixed an issue where additional other bugs have been fixed. So yeah, that's about it basically in terms of the forms of how the bugs was being fixed for the sake of the forms of Mario Luigi Brothership. So yeah, I guess it's that, I suppose. So either way, even though it's not exactly clear if I was expected to try and mention about that clearly, because we already know for a fact it has been about a couple of hours since we've last played this game for sure, because either way though, we are still getting some good progress so far for the likes of the uploading schedules alike. Certainly a lot more progressioning actually, in comparison to the forms of how it does it back in about last month, because my goodness, that stupid cold really ruins the experience, all things considered. But either way, so, and I suppose no matter what though, speaking of Sonic the Hedgehog 3 actually, is that hopefully though, that Sonic the Hedgehog 3 will definitely make its way to the top 10 highest grossing films of 2024, probably at some point until next week, likely also in number 10, because I don't think it's possible they're trying to make its way to number 1, just because Inside Out 2 already made its claims onto, you know what I mean, the highest grossing animated films ever, which, it turns out we were wrong, because there was technically yet another film that somehow bypasses that particular film entirely for Inside Out 2, but we'll save that particular topic for a later time, because generally speaking there's also another thing else we'd like to point out as well, that recently though, a Nintendo Music app has recently received a brand new set of music we can able to listen to. That's what appears to be the Street Pass music for the 3DS itself. So because of that though, yeah, I can totally see why that the Street Pass 3DS music is now being added to Nintendo Music app, especially because I will admit though right away, it's been so many years since we've last used the Street Pass feature for the 3DS, plus it's mainly because, as far as I'm aware, we've essentially just moved on to not only Nintendo Switch 1, but potentially the upcoming Nintendo Switch 2 as well, but we still have no idea what specific features they'll somehow get revealed for Nintendo Switch 2 until again on April the 2nd, so... But anyway, also, I don't suppose if you noticed about the fact that everyone else keeps on talking about the forms that there's going to be another Nintendo Direct at some point in this month, on February. Well, I can't tell for sure, but I do suppose there's going to be one of them for the likes of the Pokemon Presents, because obviously the Pokemon Presents always happens during the forms of in February, specifically at some point in either the 26th or the 27th for that matter. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens. Especially at this point in time, there aren't any new game releases for this month for that particular point. Because, well, obviously though, that Nintendo is already preparing for, you know, Nintendo Switch 2, and you name the rest. So, anyway, so we've met again with the forms of Rampy right here, and we can able to use him for the majority of the stage by able to actually going plowing through the forms of specific blocks and all that stuff. So, yeah, still relatively an easy stage, assuming of course you have to pay attention to the forms of the actual specific movements sometimes, because there are a couple of times though about the fact that there's going to be some crumbling platforms, and in addition to that there's also some fire rings. You can able to actually jump through it, and then once you've done so, then you obviously get certain rewards. Like for instance though, we got some more bananas and all that jazz. So yeah, everything else checks out there for the most part. So but there is that one particular level though, Sonic, that we definitely need to require Rampy at all times, not only for the likes of the forms of one of those puzzle pieces, but same applies with the forms of another one too. Oh yeah, that'll be for later. So anyway, now for the most part though, that's as far as we can able to actually say about the forms of today's topic, I guess, like I said before, just because, although, there is technically one last thing we would like to mention about, is that, yeah, it's pretty not so much surprising about the fact that Mufasa the Lion King actually receives the actual release date for not only for DVD, but alongside with the Blu-ray release and the UHD Blu-ray DVD, or any release dates for that matter, because, well, it's going to be releasing at some point in by the end of March, specifically the 31st of March in the UK version. So, yeah, not too fond about that personally, just because I'm still prefer watching Sonic the Hedgehog 3 the most, but that's just me, because at this point, I'm so sick and tired of the forms of those Disney live-action movies. But then again, as far as what Silver said, they've got to have money. I think that's what they're going for here. So, yeah, anyway, let's move on to the next temple level, which appears to be Shifty Smashers, where basically though we have to avoid a lot of those crushing blocks. So, yeah, which as a result, I get the feeling that this level is going to be pretty easy with Diddy Kong, but which that could be also applies with any other temple levels, assuming of course that we do not screw up at one point when it comes to the upcoming levels later. So, anyway, so we have no idea what's going to be up next, for the sake of the forms of Capcom 74 himself, especially because at this point in time, that he does so much RPG stuff at this point in time. I mean, who knows, maybe he'll try to able to go back into Luigi's Mansion of all things, with Luigi's Mansion 2 or something, or Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, but we'll have to wait and see what happens in due time, especially because, well, he might able to actually decide to take a break on that, you know, the massive game as it is. So, despite the fact that we, no longer have that game anymore, just because, obviously, though, we just have no interest with the franchise anymore. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is a pretty interesting experience for ourselves, but I'm not really into the forms of franchises like that, because I kind of prefer not only a lot of Mario RPG stuff, but alongside with Kingdom Hearts, and that's about it basically. But we also like to check out some other RPG stuff, ranging from Klonoa Heroes, the legendary Star and Metal for the Game Boy Advance, despite the fact that that game was exclusive for Japan, but there was actually the forms of fan translation version, usually for the sake of the forms of, you know, trying to able to actually get into the emulator, or just, well, it's hard for me to explain, because it has been quite some time since we somehow mentioned something related to role-playing games or RPG stuff in general. So, anyways, let's just go and try to focus here so we don't get too crushed too many times. But regardless of such though, there was this very annoying moment where if you think at one point you did somehow manage able to try to avoid being crushed, but sometimes though about the fact that if you dare bump into a wall, it just somehow knocks you back a little bit, which is a little bit annoying. But regardless of such though, we did somehow, well, accomplish it. So either way, only 5 more colorful orbs left. So yeah, that pretty much explains that. So either way, so now let's go ahead and take on the next boss in the game, and that's what it appears to be, of course, you know, with that particular familiar bird fight we can able to actually try to take on, except this time on glorious HD quality. That's what appears to be Ruined Roast. So yeah, it looks like about the fact that we have to try to deal with these bombs and what have you in order to able to deal the amount of damage to him. So yeah, nothing else I can really talk about this, I guess, because, well, we have no idea what's going to be up next for the next coming days and all that stuff. So either way, there's no need to worry about the DK barrel from now on. So yeah, let's get into the fight. So yeah, let's get into this particular boss fight now, and there's technically one last thing I want to mention about in terms of today's discussion, is that yes, unfortunately I've decided able to come back on playing through Mario Kart Tour again by trying to able to actually unlock some more Mii Racing suits at one point, because generally speaking though, I was originally trying to able to actually get myself yet another Dr. variant of one of those characters, like Dr. Luigi, or Dr. Peach, or Dr. Bowser, but I'm probably not gonna try to spend on that too much, because I'm trying to able to actually desperately trying to get myself yet another playable character in Mario Kart Tour, and that's what appears to be 16-bit Mario based off from Super Mario Kart, potentially for the next tour coming up, because, well, generally speaking, at this point in time, I do need to grind as many of those rubies as I could before I'm able to actually desperately trying to unlock a full complete set based off from Super Mario Kart playable characters, likely for the 16-bit counterparts of Mario, and we've already got Donkey Kong Jr. from the likes of Super Mario Kart, because, well, I just like it that way, because either way though, oh jeez, we now need to try to jump over that particular tactical nuke right there, and yeah, Rams to repeat, basically, just trying to keep on tossing those bombs right back at him, and once you've done so, then the entire fight will be over and done with by then. So either way, and it's also worth noting for the sake of time though, Sonic, we have to watch out for these fire bombs, because otherwise, if it explodes, then obviously though, the lot of flames will able to actually decide to chase after you, or in some cases, some of these flames will be burst out. So, but either way, we did somehow manage to finish him off no problem. So, more button mashing is so insane. But regardless of such though, I don't think I actually got that much hits on this guy, but either way, let's see how much hits we've got him. Oh, just only 16 or 18? Well, I can't really tell for sure, but either way, I think that pretty much does it for the Ruins world. So yeah, not too shabby. Yeah, especially because obviously though, thankfully we didn't die too many times, although there's only one point we do die at one point. That's of course trying to get that K letter for one of the levels, so, but nothing compared to the forms of the next world we're going to be dive into, which is the Cave World. Oh boy, this is the level that does feature not only minecart levels, but alongside with the forms of the rocket barrel levels as well. Yes, because either way, we'll save more topics more about it at some point until tomorrow. So with that being said, folks, is that we get endings of this point right here. So join us next time for more of Let's Play of Donkey Kong Country Returns HD for the Nintendo Switch. Is that we're going to be moving on into, without a doubt, is the hardest world in the game so far, and that's what appears to be the Cave World. So wish us luck, I guess. So we'll see you guys until tomorrow. Later, fellas.